Hi everyone. In this video, I'll show you my advent calendar. I've created this file in CRICUT Design Space, and if you'd like to use my project, take a look in the description right under this video. You'll find a link to my Facebook group, Carol's CRICUT Crafts. That's where I share all my projects. This is a large project and so a large file. I thought it best to walk you through the different elements so you know what everything is for before you choose your materials and start cutting. These two blue pieces you see are the main outside cover of the book. So you'll see that I've done two pieces that can be cut from 12 by 12 cardstock in case you don't have 12 by 24. But you also have this option, which is 12 by 24. Whichever one you don't plan to use today, just hide it in your layers panel. I suggest you don't delete it because you never know, in the future you may decide that you want it after all. If I'm going to use the 12 by 24 to cut this outside, don't forget to hide the text that I've attached, just so you know what this piece is. In this case, I'm going to be using the two 12 by 12 pieces. I thought it would be a good idea to show you how I did that. So I'm just going to hide this group. I don't need it. These beige pieces represent the chipboard that I used. I used the backing from my cardstock. I'll show it to you when we switch to our overhead. It works really, really well. It's solid enough and extra solid when you add the blue background or when you add the blue layer to it. I'll say blue because that's what color it is in the file, but of course you'll use whatever color you like. So these beige pieces represent the chipboard that you're going to use. We have a template for lining up the squares in the file. I've already cut one for my trial book. I won't be cutting it again today. It's 8 by 10, so you can use 8.5 by 11 to cut it out. You can use any color. It doesn't have to be white, but I wanted it to be different from the rest of the pieces, so I made it white on my screen. I already have it. I'm not going to cut it out again today, so I'm just going to hide it in my layers panel. I will keep everything in case I need it again in the future. I wanted to mention also for this, the chipboard, you'll need either one sheet of 12 by 24 or two sheets of 12 by 12 will do it also. So you need that. Then we have two of these that look identical. I've made them different colors. One is for the outside of the booklet. The other is for the inside of the booklet. For each one, you'll need two sheets of 12 by 12. This blue piece is part of the structure that you'll use in the center of your booklet. So you need that, whether you're cutting two 12 by 12 or the one 12 by 24, you will need this piece. This group is the base of the little boxes. You'll need 6 sheets of 12 by 12. I've colored them all red in the file, but of course you can change all the colors as you wish. These 3 green represent the lids for those little boxes. I've used 3 different colors in my trial version, but of course the colors are completely up to you. You can use whatever you like. So let's go make it. I'll choose on the mat and continue. You see those 2 layers that I said were either the inside or outside, and the 2 layers inside or outside. It's up to you which colors you choose. Then we have 6 mats for the base boxes. We have 2 mats for the chipboard We have 3 mats for the lids of the boxes. And if you're using 12 by 12, you'll have 3 mats for the outside cardstock that holds the whole book together. So that's the whole file. I recommend making the changes to the colors here before you go to cut so that you don't mix up your sheets when you place them. Don't forget the light beige is the chipboard. So I'm going to switch to my overhead camera and we'll start assembling this advent calendar book. And we're ready to assemble. Our cuts are done. But before we get started, I just wanted to review with you what you're going to want to have on hand. You'll need adhesive, of course. I like a tacky glue for installing the chipboard. I find that you can put a good amount on the chipboard. It adheres well. And I use Tombow for the smaller pieces like the little boxes. Of course, you can use any adhesive that you want to work with, but I find the tacky glue is really good for a strong bond with something like the chipboard, and you want it to be well adhered so that your book stays in place as it should. You'll need ribbon to make the ties unless you decide you don't want ties on it. Scissors, of course, because we're going to trim our corners once we install our chipboard. And you'll want something like maybe a little washi tape or masking tape, or you can even use Scotch tape if you don't have those others. And you're only going to use this if you're doing the outside main cover with 12 by 12. If you're doing 12 by 24, you won't need it. But with the 12 by 12, we want something to hold the 2 sheets aligned while we install our chipboard. So you'll want some kind of a light tape like that, masking tape, washi tape, even Scotch tape if you need it. So our cuts are, we have 24 box bases and 24 lids. I've done the same colors that I did on my trial version. You'll have your template for installing the little boxes. If you think you don't need it, that's up to you. We'll just put that aside. We have our outside layers and we have our inside layers. These are decorative layers to hide the construction of the box. And then we have, I'm using the 12 by 12 so I can show you how you do it. We have 2 pieces that are, I believe, 10.5 by 11.5. And you'll see that you have a score line that goes at the top when you assemble it. And the only purpose for the score line is to give you an edge to line up your chipboard. So you want that score line, but you don't want to bend it yet. It's not necessary. And finally, we have our chipboard. I'm still using, like as I did with the waterfall folio, I use the backing from my CRICUT cardstock packages. I really like it. You can use chipboard, of course, if you prefer, but I like this. It's easy to cut with your regular fine point blade. I just put it on a strong grip mat and I pass it twice without unloading it in between to cut these pieces. And I find it works really well. It's nice and solid, but it's light enough to work with. This last piece of blue cardstock is what we'll use to hide this spine on the inside so it's not visible. So we're going to get started assembling this advent calendar book. It's really fun to do and I hope you're going to enjoy it. I'll just set these pieces aside that we don't need yet and we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to get started with the main cover for our chipboard. So you want to place them with those score line markers at the top. They both have them. The score line markers should go up at the top and you just want to align them touching side by side. If you see a little tiny gap, no worries, that's all going to be completely covered. So that's not an issue. I'm going to grab a piece of washi tape. And just make sure everything is aligned at the top and the bottom. And just use the washi tape to hold it in place. And don't worry about anything if you see a tiny space, because when you cover it, it will be completely hidden. And your adhesive will go right onto this washi tape. So there's no problem with it being there. Okay, just get some more. I like to put it all the way across, all the way down, so that I don't pull anything apart. And I think this is a really helpful way to do it. This is how I did it on my trial version. I think it's helpful because some people don't have 12 by 24 cardstock, or if you want to do it with a pattern cardstock, it might not be available in 12 by 24. So you can use two 12-inch sheets like this and a little piece to hold the top. There we go. And I cut that crooked, I'll just trim that off. There. Okay, so now we have the size we need. So now you can give a little bend to your score line so that it's more visible. You don't have to, but it helps to make it more visible. You don't want to make a sharp bend in it, in case this is not the edge you need when you actually fold it up. So that looks great. I'm going to start by centering up my spine. I'll use my tacky glue. And I use a generous amount to make sure it all stays assembled. But of course you'll use whatever adhesive you're comfortable using. There we go. We'll just turn it over and line it up with that score line and try to center it up. That looks nice and straight. And we need that to dry. And then we're going to add one side, and you want to leave a gap just large enough, not too large, maybe the width of your chipboard. You want to leave a gap so that when you fold it up, you have that space for folding and scoring and folding. So you want to leave a little gap there. Line it up with the top score line and your spine. So we'll get some adhesive on this one. Being very generous with the adhesive. I want to make sure that nothing moves. There we go. We'll turn this over, and we're just going to leave that little gap. Try to keep it straight. And press it down. And we're going to repeat the same on the second side. Go and try to keep the spaces uniform, the same space you did on both sides. Try to keep them uniform so that it folds nicely. That looks good. Okay, you're going to want to fold your edges up, but you want to make sure that this is quite dry so that you don't disturb it when you fold your edges. And we can see that at the bottom the edge is a little smaller than the top, but that's no problem. Everything is going to be covered, so that doesn't make any difference at all. It seems quite stuck. That's going to fold nicely. So will this side. Okay. So now I'm just going to take my CRICUT stylus and I'm just going to score down to help it fold. Do it a couple of times. That should help it fold, and it does. It folds nicely. We'll try this side. Very nice. So that is working well. I hope that it's dry enough for me to fold up my edges so that I don't move anything. We're just going to take our stylus again and score down again. And as you can see, I see a little bit of my washi tape here, if you can see that, but no matter because it will be covered. So it won't show. Folded the top. Just flip it around and fold the bottom. Okay, and now we're going to fold the sides. And you can't really do this by adding score lines to design space, because if you place your chipboard a little bit off, then your score lines aren't going to work for you anyway. So it's easier just to fold these after you have your chipboard installed. It makes more sense. Okay, so we're ready to adhere, but before we do, we want to miter our corners. So I'm just going to take my scissor and trim a bit off the corner, and I'm going to check it, and that looks great. I have a nice mitered corner. We'll do the same on all four corners. So you're cutting about 1/8 of an inch away from the corner of the chipboard. That looks nice. The third corner. That's too large. I need to cut more. Beautiful. And the last one. Very nice. Great. Okay, so now we're ready to adhere these parts. So this was my bottom. I'm going to use the tacky glue again. On the waterfall folio, I used double-sided tape. I find the tacky glue holds even better on the chipboard. There we go. Just push that up. You'll need to keep pressing it. You want to make sure that it's well adhered. Help it along. Maybe I'll use my stylus to give it a better press. My scoring tool to score in a bit to help it fold. That looks good. Okay, now we'll do the other long edge. More tacky glue. I'm using a lot. I want to make sure it stays. Feels good. Just double check my score line. So as you can see, it takes a little patience to assemble the book cover, but it's well worth it. Looks terrific. Looks good. And now we'll do this side. perfect. On the last side, I want to make sure this is still pressed down. So keep checking it as you're working on it. Make sure everything is well adhered. You don't want it to lift and start lifting your decorative layers, and especially if you're gifting it. You want to make sure that it's working really well. Good. I'm not worried about this adhesive that ran over because it's all going to be covered anyway. Just make sure it's all well adhered. Make sure your score lines are deep enough to give you a nice fold. That looks good. And there's our book cover. And see my seam up the spine? That's going to be covered with a decorative layer. So you can definitely do this with 12 by 12 cardstock. No worries if you don't have 12 by 24, or if there's a pattern that you want to use that only comes in 12 by 12, you can definitely do it. Just use a little washi tape or masking tape, anything like that will help you. So this is our spine cover. This goes down the center. Center it up as well as you can to hide the center spine. And no worries if it's not perfect, because you're going to be adding cardstock, a decorative layer, so this won't show at all. Okay, I'm going to start that by putting adhesive just on the center spine. You don't want to glue down the sides of it yet. I got a little too much there. Just wipe that away. There we go, that's better. Okay, so we're just going to line this up. Hopefully centered. If not, that's okay too, because it's going to be covered. The edges will be covered. Line that up. And you're going to let this dry a little bit before we try folding it and scoring it. You don't want it to lift. So let the center dry a little bit. This is a long process. I guess you see that as you're watching this video. It's a long process, but it does turn out really, really cute. And it makes a wonderful gift. Keep checking my edges while I let it dry a bit. That looks good. Okay, so now we're just going to fold a little bit. And we're going to score. You want to get a good score line there. And then you're just going to add some adhesive along this edge. Or actually, you can even add it right onto the base itself. And we'll fold this up and adhere it. Should be good. Let it dry a little more. And we'll do the same on this side. So you want to find your edge. You can see your score line where it is. Fold it a little more. It takes patience, but you want to do a good job. So we'll add our adhesive. Looks good. Work my score line a little bit. Fold it up. Okay. And you want to let that dry before you fold it anymore. Good. And we're ready to install our decorative panels on the outside and the inside. This isn't dry enough yet, so I will do the outside first and let that dry. On the outside, I'm going to use the blue just like on my demo version. I like how that looked. That looks perfect. I think I'll use the Tombow for this because I want to make sure that I don't have tacky glue running over. So I'll just use the Tombow. More down at the bottom. I don't want it to lift. That looks good. Okay, so you can see the score lines that you use to fold the book, so you can use them as your guidelines to add the spine. That looks perfect. We'll add our panels. You could probably use double-sided tape for this if you want to, because it's not part of the construction, so it doesn't have to be, you're not worried about something like the chipboard not holding, so you can use different adhesive for this. Just center that up and try to get it on nice and straight. Perfect. And our last piece from the outside. Nice. And as you can see watching this video, I'm taking my time because I want everything to be straight and very pretty. Should be good. Try to keep your spacing the same for the front and the back so it looks really uniform. I think that looks great. Let's see how our spine cover is holding, and it's doing nicely. At first you'll find it a little stiff, but as you work it, as you open and close it and work with it, it will soften up a bit. And I didn't add my ribbons, so I'll have to think of something else to attach my ribbon. Now we're going to add our decorative panels to the inside. And I think what I will do is add the ribbon here under these panels since I didn't put it on the outside. I think it'll work just as well if I add them to the inside. So I'll just cut my ribbon. Okay, so I have my ribbon ties. I'm just going to move this aside for a second. I'm going to use double-sided tape just to hold the ribbon in place while I adhere the layers on top. So I'll just take a piece of double-sided tape. And I know that this is 10 inches. So I'm going to put the tape at 5 inches so it's centered. Made that just a little too long. And I'll tear another piece. At 5 inches. And that should work nicely. So we'll just set that aside. Just pull the cover off of this if I can. go. And off the side. And of course the layers are going to be glued on top, so that's just to hold the ribbon in the right place while I glue the layers. I've cut the ribbon about 12 inches for each piece. That should hold it. And it's centered nicely. So it doesn't hurt to measure where you put your tape or glue to hold the ribbon. So we'll start again with our spine. Use your score lines as center markers to line everything up nicely. I'm going to add some adhesive right here to make sure the cardstock sticks on top of the ribbon. I don't want it to pull out. Looks good. Nice and straight. And I think that'll work just fine. Usually we put the ribbon on the outside layer, but I got ahead of myself and didn't attach it, so it's on the inside layer, but I think it'll work just as well. I'll add adhesive here again. And on my cardstock, of course. I'm really generous with adhesive. I want to make sure it doesn't come apart. Okay, our second panel. That looks nice and straight. And perfect. So the construction of the book is done. I'm going to prepare to use my template that I cut and add the boxes to it. But I'm going to let this dry really well first so that I don't risk moving anything around while I add the boxes. So this is the construction of your book. I'll let this dry and I'll be back to add the little gift boxes. So here are the little boxes that I've assembled. I've assembled 22 of them, and then I thought I would keep 2 more unassembled to show you how, in case there's anyone making this who doesn't know how to assemble the boxes that I share. So there's 22. These are 2-inch square and they're 1 inch deep. They're a cute size for the advent calendar. You can certainly fill them with candy or cash, whatever you prefer, little notes, anything like that. And the lids are quite snug. We wouldn't want them to fall off if the advent calendar is standing straight up. So that's 22 done. Getting ready to layer them all into the book. So you'll notice that there are 4 score lines to create the square, and then you have on each end score lines for the tabs that you assemble with. I'm using Tombow because it comes out nice and thin. And we'll just put it on the tabs. Move that away so you can see better. I just put it on all the tabs first. These little boxes are quick to assemble. It doesn't take long. I actually assembled those 22 while I was watching something on TV. It's one side. I'll just press it down to make sure the adhesive is well adhered. And then we'll do the second side. So you can see how you put the tabs on the inside so they don't show. And just press them down. And there's your lid. So easy to do. So let's do one of the bases. You're just going to fold all 4 score lines. Some of you may have already done this hundreds of times, but for anyone new, I definitely wanted to show how to put them together. And then we have the score lines on the little tabs. There we go. You just add adhesive. All 4 tabs have adhesive, and then you just fold the tab in to the inside. Make sure it's lined up nice and straight on the edge. With the Tombow, you need to hold it for a second to start drying, so I like to put them down and put some pressure on them. And then we'll do the second side. Just line it up along the edge. And I'll press it down. There we go. Just check your edges to make sure they're well adhered. And we'll add the lid. As I mentioned, they are snug. You want them to be snug so they don't come apart in the booklet. So there's one. We'll do the last one. just like the red base that I just folded. Fold the 4 sides down along the score lines. Okay, you have all 4 sides folded, and then fold your little tabs. And then we glue the tabs. You're always gluing them to the inside. You don't want the tabs to be outside showing the construction of the box. So we'll add some adhesive. Press that in. Just hold those down for a second. That looks perfect. Then we add this side. Make sure they're nice and straight so the lid goes on straight. That looks good all the way around. And we'll do the base. Last one. So this will make 24 little gift boxes, which is perfect for our advent calendar book. Exactly what we need. All 4 sides are folded, and now I fold my tabs. Very easy to make. It doesn't take long at all to put together the 24 boxes. But I didn't want to do 24 boxes on camera because the video is already long. Okay, line it up. Looks good. I really like this Tombow. It's very sticky, but I like it for doing these small things or adding small embellishments. There's the lid, all done. Just make sure all my corners are good. And we're done. There we go, the last one. So I have my template ready and my book base is ready. I let it dry a good long time so everything is nice and solid. It moves easily because from time to time I opened it and closed it. The spine is really nice. And it will be fun to decorate these on the outside to make them really pretty. But also you don't have to. If you want to leave them plain, you can certainly leave them plain. So next we're going to add our template. And we'll start adding the boxes. And we're going to start installing our little boxes. I've got some Scotch tape that I'm going to use. And I wanted you to notice that when I'm installing the template, I'm not covering up the score line. If you put the template over the score line, your boxes will be too close to the edge and it will probably interfere with opening and closing the box. So you want the template to line up with the edge of your cardstock, of your decorative cardstock, and along the top. And I found an easy way to do it was just to put a little piece of Scotch tape on the template and on my table. not on the book itself because you don't want to risk tearing your cover on your book. So I just put a little Scotch tape like that to make sure it doesn't move while I'm adding the little boxes. So I'll add another piece just to be sure. I'll put it on the side, on the template, and on the table. And there's a little gap there because I don't want it to touch the actual book, but this way it will stay in place. So when you install your boxes, you need the lids to be off. If you keep the books on, the tops on, you won't be able to remove your template without tearing it off, and you don't want to have to cut another one. I've used this one, this will be the third time, so I just keep using the same template. I'm going to use my tacky glue for this because I find the Tombow dries very fast, and it doesn't give me the ability to move the box a little bit if I need to line it up a little better. So I'm not using the Tombow for this. So I'm just adding some tacky glue to the bottom of the box and then just line it up. Make sure that you're not crossing over the template. Give yourself enough space. And that's all there is to it. So make sure they're straight. See, because I use the tacky glue, I can adjust it. I moved it a bit when I pressed it down, but no problem, I can just go back and adjust it. The Tombow would have already started drying and made it difficult to move them. So just line it up again. Check that you're lining it up with the one before. Press it down a little, make sure it doesn't move. That looks very good. And my third. This goes pretty fast. And it doesn't matter if you want to work across or down, however you're more comfortable doing it. We'll put one across. That looks good. Nothing's touching the template. It looks nice and straight. And we just continue like that until all 12 are done on this side. You just want to be careful that everything is straight and nothing is overlapping the template. But don't forget to take off your lids. Easy enough to do. Just keep checking that nothing moved and keep an eye on the one before and the one beside to make sure you're lining up. That's looking terrific. Looks good. I think it's super fun. The template really helps. I suggest using it. It really helps to keep everything aligned while you're installing the little boxes. So good. And you can see that the tacky glue gives me a second to make adjustments, so I don't have to worry about it drying too fast. Looks good. See how easy it is? Oops, we can't move it. I was going to push it forward on my table to make sure you could see the bottom row well, and then I remembered I taped it down, so we can't possibly move it. That looks better. All right. Okay, and our last one for this side. And we're not putting the lids on yet, of course, so it doesn't matter which one, if you're using different color lids, it doesn't matter which one you adhere at this point, because when you put the lids back, you'll sort them in the order that you want them, by colors or patterns or whatever it is you're using. Okay, so this side is all done. And what I did when I made my trial version is I took my iPad for a little weight and put it on top just to hold everything down. And I left it like that for about, this is just a frame that I have here in my craft room, a wood frame. It's not too heavy, so it won't move anything, but it will give a little bit of weight to hold everything in place. And I'll leave it like that for about 10 minutes, and then I'll do the other side. So here we are back again. I've let this side dry for about 10 minutes just to be sure everything was settled. I'm just going to gently remove the Scotch tape that I put on the template so I don't tear it. And you can see everything is nice and solid. The boxes are well adhered, they won't come off. Just remove that carefully. And the template should lift right off if you haven't glued it down. I'm moving it as I'm lifting it, so there we go. Perfect to use again on the other side. And You could even, if you want to, keep some pressure on this, put something on top, a book or something on top to keep holding it down. But at this point, they are really well adhered and they're not going to come loose. When I did the first one, I put the lids on right away because I was so excited to see how it looks. And I mix the lids up so that they're not the same color one after another. But that's totally up to you, whatever you like to do. And we'll put this one on. And a dark one. Isn't that cute? And then we need a dark one for the first one here. They are snug. And then a tree one. Do I have one? Yes, I do. It doesn't matter what order you take them off in because you just put them back in the order you want after the little boxes are installed. And then we need this little ballerina. And then another ballerina. And a dark one. And then I need a tree. There we go. So that side is done. And I did notice that I did this one a little bit too far to the left, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Your grandchildren or children are going to be so excited to receive this. They're not going to notice that one is a little far to the left. So if you make a little mistake, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. They're going to be a lot more interested in what's in the boxes rather than how you place them. Okay, so just make sure this is lined up nice and straight. And we'll do the same thing we did on the other side. I'm taping the template and the table. I'm not putting tape on the actual booklet. And you want to check that you lined it up the same as you did on this side, as far as the edges are concerned, so that everything runs straight across. You don't want one side lower than the other. So you want to try and keep that balance. And there we go. We're ready to install the rest of the boxes. So I'm going to do it in the same manner that I did the left side. Done with the Scotch tape. And just keep adding boxes and lining them up. And here we go, the last two for this side. There we go. So nice and easy to do when you're using the template. So once again, I'm going to leave the template on. Just double check myself that things look straight. Not too bad. And I'm just going to put a light weight on them. Did I move them? I put a light weight on them to make sure everything stays in place. And I'll let that dry for about 10 minutes. And we're back. This side should be nice and dry by now. Everything seems good. So we'll just remove our tape once again. Gently from the template if you plan to use the template again. So don't tear it. And we'll remove our template. I'll keep mine. And all the little boxes are well adhered. And I'll start putting my lids back on, and I'm going to repeat what I've done on this side. So the ballerina, the dark blue, and the trees, so that I don't have two of the same up against each other. So we'll start with the ballerina. But as I mentioned before, this is totally up to you. If you want to do it a little different, you do. There. And then a dark blue. And the trees. It's a little hard to reach between the boxes. Trees again. And you can see what I mean by they're not matching. We don't want them to match the edges if you're using different patterns. There we go. And the dark blue. I keep catching them on the edge. There, that works better. And then we need a dark blue for this one. And then the trees. And the little dancer. And then the little dancer again. Whoops. The dark blue. And the trees. And there we go. Both sides done. Isn't that terrific? They all line up really nice. You can check them when you close the book. They're lining up very nice. Because I was careful to place my template on both sides at the same height and the same edge so that everything is uniform. I'm not going to decorate this one on camera. I still haven't decided what to do with it. on this first one that I made, I put the tin soldier in it, and I think that's kind of cute. So I might do the same on this one, but I haven't decided what I want to do on the outside and for numbers. Right now I'm leaning towards glitter, red glitter, to really pop on these colors. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'll just put that aside. So this is all done. If you want to let the boxes dry a little more, you want to maybe keep it overnight open while it dries a little more. And there we go. Beautiful. All done. So I hope you're going to enjoy making these. Please post pictures in the group if you do. I would really love to see the different papers you choose and the different little box covers, box lids you use. I'd be really excited to see that. Also, how you decorate them. So as mentioned in the beginning of this video, if you'd like to use my Design Space file, check the description right under this video. You'll find a link to my Carol's Cricut Crafts Facebook group. That's where I share all my project links for Design Space. Thank you for watching.